Hello there everyone, welcome to another video on the channel and welcome to a very late in the week review of this week's daily race from Grand Valley Highway in the Group 3 machinery. And in particular I want to take a look at this race because I think it does a very good job of highlighting an issue that we have in Gran Turismo 7 when it comes to daily race C and GTWS races in terms of strategy. But before we get into that, first just let me apologise for not putting out a strategy guide for this week. I did put a community post out on the Monday explaining why I wasn't doing that. We obviously had the issues with our Logitech wheel, the Logitech G Pro, and yeah, we also threw in the fact that we were back to using custom slipstream after a week of beautiful real slipstream the week before at Le Mans. But it turns out I did actually do quite a lot of this race over the course of the week, even though my Logitech G Pro wheel wasn't quite working to its full 100% potential. And to be honest with you, I kind of quickly got used to the lack of true force in the wheel. It's not like I didn't have any force feedback. You still had force feedback for understeer, oversteer. You know, I could still feel enough to get the car around the track in a respectable enough lap time, but it was very good to get that issue fixed for the Logitech wheel users and also the TGT users who will experience a very similar problem. So as I said, I actually ended up doing this race quite a lot over the course of the week, and I was actually doing it mostly on this account we're on here, my Wombo Comrade account. This is a new account I made about 3 months ago to play with some friends in a party chat, but I still race exactly the same way, I still drive exactly the same way, to try and sort of build an account up to A+ together, just driving from the back. And the reason it's from Russia is a little bit of an in-house joke that I will not go into here. But yes, welcome to Wombo Comrade. I haven't really done too much of an effort to hide the fact of who I am, and I think a lot of people who came across me on the track have said hello and have already probably figured it out. So we're down 13th place here in the Mercedes AMG, and we are completing the end of lap 1. So the way this race is set up, we have 9 laps to get around Grand Valley Highway 1 in Group 3. Tyre bears at times 6, fuel is at times 3. We've got the racing soft and the racing hard tyres both available, and both are mandatory. And we've got custom slipstream thrown into the mix as well. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, surely there should be quite a lot of strategy options in this race with the way that is set up. Unfortunately though, it doesn't quite work out that way, and that is the problem I want to try and highlight in this video, because essentially, because of the way the tyre wear model works, everybody is pretty much forced in to doing exactly the same strategy. And as we jump forward to lap 4 here, you can see that we are all still very much together. We're on the hard tyres, but so is everybody else, because essentially, as I said, everybody, despite the fact we've got different tyre compounds and a high tyre wear multiplier and a high fuel multiplier, we are all very much forced in to doing pretty much the same thing in terms of strategy, and that is 5 laps on the hard tyres and 4 laps on the soft tyres. And the reason that everybody is kind of forced to do that strategy, even if you're completely stuck in the traffic like we are here, now this isn't the most chaotic race here that I've been involved in. There's been other races where, you know, I really want to pit at the end of lap 1 at the end of lap 2, but you can't, because the soft tyres will just not last any longer than 4 laps. Well, you can do a 5th lap, you can, but you will be absolutely dead on the tyres at the end. And as you're about to see, everybody just does exactly the same thing, despite the fact, you know, look at this kind of gaggle of traffic here. We've got the custom slipstream keeping us all nice and close together. Now, as I said, not the worst race for losing time, this one, to be honest with you. Sort of doing 50s and did a 49 there on the last lap on the hard tyres. But yeah, of course I would love to have pitted at the end of lap 4 there and got the jump in all these cars. But all I would have done, even though I'd have got a good undercut of maybe about 2.5 seconds, I just ended up at the front of this queue. And then I'd be at the front of this queue with all these cars behind me with better tyres and custom slipstream, and probably just start getting pushed out the way. So there was just no benefit for going for that 1 lap earlier pit stop, because you just didn't benefit enough from it to make it worthwhile. And lo and behold, lap 5, every single person is in the pits here, as you can see. So we're going to put the soft tyres on now. Hard tyres are done, and we're going to do 4 laps on the soft tyres, but really all we're doing is retaining the status quo of the race prior to going into the pits, because everybody as you can see, is on exactly the same strategy. And now we're just going to resume battle, albeit on a different tyre compound, and that's basically how this race worked. Now, if you did try something different, like starting on the soft tyres, you just get caught up on the traffic, so you couldn't really use them. Unless you started at the very front, you could maybe run away on lap 1 and open a gap up and get the benefit of those soft tyres. But anything below pole position or maybe P2 made that strategy unusable. You could pit early on lap 4 and get 1 lap of undercut, but as I said, you maybe get like 2.5 seconds down the road in whatever queue of traffic you were in, but then you would just get swamped on the last lap or come under massive pressure on the last lap. So yeah, everybody just ended up pretty much doing exactly the same strategy race after race after race, no matter what was kind of going on. Even if you were losing 3 seconds a lap over the first 3 laps, you kind of just had to grin and bear it, or just try and make some overtakes or try and do something, because if you pitted any earlier, you just weren't getting to the end on the soft tyres, and that is where lies the problem. We don't have enough of a window in the pit stops because the tyre wear doesn't allow that to happen. We basically use the tyre right up until it's 20% left on the tread, and then you bin it. We don't have what I like to call the get home tyre like we used to in GT Sport, where you could try something very different with the strategy, and if it didn't quite work out, you were slow at the end, but at least you had some tread on the tyres to get the car to the end of the race. But what it did allow you to do, because you had that kind of get home tyre part to the tyre wear model, was you could try much more extreme undercuts. You could get the benefit of a 3, 4, 5, even a 6 lap undercut in some races, get the gap on the competitors that you were racing with, and then they would start to close you in towards the end of the race, but at least you still had the tyre to get the car home. So we're going to jump forward here to lap 9. Now, we actually did have a pretty good race here, and I will be honest with you, this is a pretty decent combination. There was some good racing to be had here. There just wasn't a strategy element to it, or a real strategy element to it. It was more, as I've often said, very much an illusion of strategy, where you think you've got 2 different tyre compounds, you think you've got a tyre multiplier in there, but essentially everybody is kind of forced into doing exactly the same thing. And if everybody's just doing exactly the same strategy, then there isn't really any strategy in a race. So yeah, come to the end of this one, we're up into P6 now. The Danish driver there, I think, has been punted off by the French driver up ahead of us, and we are going to actually pass them because they are carrying a 4-second penalty. We had a bit of a race-long battle with the Bold Ben, the Germans. Shout out to the Bold Ben, had a really good race, very hard race. They defended very hard but very fairly as well, but we did eventually manage to get past them to take that position, moving up into, as I said, P6, but it is going to be a P5 by the end of the race. And just to kind of, as we finish, this is the problem with the tyre wear. There's enough tread to get 4 laps out of them, but it's not worth your while doing that 5th lap, because you either A, run out of tread and become so slow, or you get swamped by drivers who have just done the additional lap on the hard tyres. But yeah, this one, also an issue with this one was that the race was very short, so that certainly didn't help matters. Now, if you're not quite understanding what I'm trying to highlight here, let me take you back to a race from Gran Turismo 7 back in August of 2022. So 2.5 years ago, we were at Lago Maggiore East layout, and obviously things were very different back then. We have got, obviously, the physics were different, the bop was different, the drivers were different, and most importantly, the tyre wear model was different. And at this point, we were still running the same tyre wear model that we had in Gran Turismo Sport, and the benefits that gave to strategy, I hope I can highlight from this race here. So 15 laps to get around Lago Maggiore East here. We are in the Jaguar. We've got hard tyres available, medium tyres available. Both of them are mandatory. Now, I didn't even look up what the multiplier was. I could have went and looked at a live stream or the strategy guide for this race, but it's not really that important for the story that we are trying to tell here. Now, somewhat ironically, this isn't actually my replay. This is one that I managed to find in the archive. I did remember this race from when we did it and thought it might be a good race to try and sort of demonstrate a solution to the current problem we have and strategy, and it just turns out that I happened to be in the replay that I picked to take a look at. So kind of ironic, a little bit funny, but yes, here we are in the Jaguar, a car that I used to drive an awful lot. I did used to love the Group 3 Jaguar. But one other thing that also stuck out to me when I was kind of taking a look at this replay 2.5 years ago is that the driving seems so much more respectful than the driving that we get now. I kind of watched a lot of this race, and people are racing hard, but they're racing so much fairer with each other. There seems to be a lot more respect going into the corners, much less nose poking. Now, it could just be completely anecdotal that this was a race that people were clean with and respectful with, but yeah, it did sort of, it struck out at me straight away, and there's no two doubts about it. The Gran Turismo 7 is a very aggressive racing game at the moment. Now, I would say a lot of that comes down to the custom slipstream, but there probably is other factors in there as well. Yes, the lack of the penalty system not being in the best of shapes is probably another one. But yeah, that's another video for another day. Let's jump forward here to lap 9, and we're going to pop into the pits here from behind the Spaniard in the Porsche. Now you can see that our lap times have not been massively impacted by the traffic there, so that's probably why we've gone so deep into the race. We weren't getting massively held up. We were able to run lap times kind of within what our acceptable parameters are of not losing too much time. And then the Spaniard pits 1 lap later, and you can see we've got the undercut on the Spanish driver there. But that's not really the point that I'm trying to make. I'm going to jump forward here to lap 14, and what I want you to take a look at is the tyre wear in the bottom left hand corner there. Look at how much tread we have left on those tyres, but then take your eyes up into the right of the screen on the lap times there. You can see that already our lap times are starting to drop off significantly, and as we finish this lap we're going to go a full second slower than our best lap. So even though it doesn't look like there's that much tyre wear, if we were playing a game today on that tyre wear, you'd still be able to set fastest laps and personal best laps, because you wouldn't really have any real impact on the pace of the car with that level of tyre wear. But we're already losing a second per lap, and that's because the tyre wear worked very differently back in 2022 and back in GT Sport, and that the performance of the tyre all came in like the first 25%, and once you wore the tyre down 25%, you were about a second and a half laps slower than what you'd wear when the tyres were at their best. But what this also allowed you to do, because you had plenty tread left, this is what I call the get the car home tyre, it did allow you to go for much more extreme undercuts. Now, we haven't really done it in this race, to be honest with you, and neither did anyone, but what I kind of did want to highlight to you was how much tread was left on the tyre. So had I pitted on like lap 6 or 7, let's just say the start of the race is chaotic, I've got loads of cars in front of me, they're killing each other, we're losing 2-3 seconds per lap, I could have dived into the pits on lap 6, got the benefit of the undercut for like 4 laps on people who pitted on like lap 9 and lap 10 doing the optimal strategy, got 5, 6, 7 seconds down the road, but then I paid the price by being slow over the last portion of the race. But I was just slow, I wouldn't die on the tyres, I would still have plenty of tread left to get the car home. And so just because of that simple little change, you managed to open up the strategy much wider than we currently have today, where you just get the performance and then it's a dead tyre. And when I say dead, I mean that the tyre's completely gone, you've got no tread left whatsoever, and you're losing 5 or 6 seconds per lap. But yeah, hopefully I've kind of managed to explain this some way in an understandable manner. If not, you've just wasted 14 minutes of your life, and I do apologise for that. But yes, we do have a strategy issue in Gran Turismo 7, and the solution is honestly just to go back to the original tyre wear model. Everything about the original tyre wear model is very similar to what we currently have in terms of performance, the way the performance drops off the tyre, the way the degradation kicks in. The one thing we are missing is just that kind of get home tyre, as I've called it several times over the course of the video, and that was the key factor to opening up the strategy window and giving people much wider options of when to pit. That allowed you to go for much more extreme undercuts and then take the pain at the end of the race. So yeah, I can't really say any more about it. But thank you very much for watching, I do appreciate it, and I'll maybe see you on the track with Womble Comrade. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.